Why don't people trust a Scorpio? Good question, I would love to tell you. Quick disclaimer first, because people can get real defensive about astrology. We are more than just our sun sign. Your entire birth chart matters. The houses matter, the aspects matter, everything matters. So if you're a Scorpio and you're like, this isn't me at all, it might just be one aspect of you. You are not automatically the default version of your sun sign. Every trait you have is not attributed solely to your sun sign. From doing these videos, I find I have to keep saying that. Every single zodiac sign has amazing qualities and also shadow qualities. Every sign has something beautiful they bring to the world and something they're here to grow through. None of us are exempt from healing and growth. Here's the short answer. People struggle to trust Scorpios because they can come across as secretive, intense, emotionally reactive, manipulative, and sometimes vindictive. There's this pop culture idea about the Scorpio sting, and honestly, that reputation did not come from nowhere. When Scorpios feel hurt, betrayed, or emotionally threatened, they don't always go on the defense like a Cancer or avoid it like a Pisces. They often go on the offense. They're gonna get you before you get them. That's where the mean or direct reputation often comes from. But the bigger issue isn't actually the sting. It's the combination of wanting deep emotional closeness while also being extremely guarded and private. Scorpios want intensity and obsession. They want loyalty. They want to feel completely emotionally understood. But at the same time, they don't always communicate what they feel openly. The intensity can be very confusing and sometimes come across as manipulation. Simply put, people struggle to trust Scorpios because they feel like they're being analyzed and only let in sometimes instead of fully included. Now here's the longer answer. First of all, Scorpios are absolutely not unbothered. I don't care what anyone says, you will never convince me that a water sign is unbothered, especially Scorpio. Scorpio is one of the most emotionally intense signs in the entire zodiac. They feel everything deeply, but instead of expressing it outwardly right away, they tend to ruminate. Which means they replay conversations, they analyze the tones, they think about what someone meant. Do they have an agenda? They try to figure out the deeper motive behind everything. And it's almost always much more negative, to be honest, because of how guarded they are. And the problem with rumination is that it keeps you stuck in the moment instead of actually processing the emotion and moving forward and growing and learning the lesson. Scorpio is also a fixed sign that is incredibly obsessive, which makes that even stronger. Because when a Scorpio feels hurt or betrayed, it's very hard for them to shift their perspective. They can get emotionally stuck in what happened, especially if they feel overwhelmed or unsafe. That's also where their obsessive reputation comes from. Scorpios don't just think about things casually, they think deeply and intensely to the point where they become emotionally attached to the story in their head. Their narrative is correct. They're also extremely observant. They notice details other people miss. They're like emotional investigators, which is why people always say Scorpios would make amazing private investigators. But being good at observing people and using only your sole perspective and emotional bias while you're at it doesn't automatically mean you're always right about what's happening at all, especially when emotion is involved, especially if you are feeling unsafe and are in survival mode. If you already feel hurt, rejected, or betrayed, it becomes very easy to start looking for proof that confirms the way you think about it already. And because Scorpio is a fixed sign, once they decide how they feel and what something means, it's very hard for them to move away from that belief. Another reason people struggle to trust Scorpio energy is the contradiction between secrecy and intensity. It seems manipulative, like I said. Scorpios want deep emotional merging. They want loyalty, closeness, passion, intensity, all of it. But they also want to stay emotionally guarded and protected. They want to be understood without having to say everything out loud. They want someone to just know how they feel and to just get it. But that's not actually how healthy communication and relationships work. So when someone is extremely secretive but also expects deep emotional loyalty, it can create insecurity in relationships. People don't know where they stand and how you feel, and that makes trust harder. It also can make things feel very one-sided emotionally because Scorpios have this interesting ability to make their emotional state and beliefs the center of the world, and they obsess about it and they can be very fixed about it. Fixed signs usually think that the way they feel about something and believe is correct and everyone else is wrong. The Scorpio sting also usually comes from feeling emotionally threatened. Scorpios are very aware of power dynamics, loyalty, shared resources and finances, and hierarchy in relationships. They're constantly tracking emotional energy. Who cares more? Who's pulling away? Who's being more honest? Who isn't? And when they feel hurt, they don't always withdraw quietly. Sometimes they retaliate. That's why Scorpios get the reputation for being vindictive. For them, it's often about wanting emotional justice. But the problem is that retaliation creates resentment, and resentment destroys trust, faster than almost anything else. Scorpios are almost always going through some kind of transformation and transition too. Scorpio energy is ruled by Pluto, which is literally the planet of death and rebirth and transformation. So a lot of Scorpios aren't just reacting emotionally, they're constantly shedding versions of themselves. They go through intense emotional cycles where they outgrow people, identities, patterns, and then have to rebuild themselves again. And when you're constantly in this process of becoming someone new, it can make you seem inconsistent, guarded, or hard to trust from the outside. If you're always down in the ocean, in the Mariana Trench, you're not open. And from a Scorpio perspective, this is very necessary for them. It's their nature. But this video is about why others can struggle with a Scorpio. It's not meant to give you excuses for why you can dig your heels in and say it's everyone else that's the issue and everyone else who has it wrong. Because here is the deeper tea. Every zodiac sign can justify why they are the way they are. Everyone has emotional wounds. Everyone has reasons for being guarded or reactive or defensive. And just like I said in the Capricorn video, you can have your reasons, but your execution matters. You might have a reason for being secretive or being guarded or private. You might have a reason for overanalyzing people and assuming that there's an agenda and a double motive. And it could be a very good reason. But if those beliefs and patterns and perspectives are consistently creating distance, insecurity, or instability in your relationships, then that's something worth reflecting on. Enacting blanket survival and coping mechanisms for every scenario is not growth or evolving. We aren't meant to stay the same, and we're not meant to make excuses for why we should. Scorpio at its highest level is actually one of the most powerful signs in the zodiac, and not consciously deploying your coping mechanisms or being present and truthful with yourself about it, that's going to create a block for you. It's going to keep you from growing and evolving. Scorpios are emotionally deep, loyal, intuitive, protective, capable of incredible transformation. They're actually not afraid to look at the truth even when it's uncomfortable. But the growth is where they can get stuck. Because growth for Scorpio usually comes from learning the difference between rumination and emotional processing, and being present and truthful about your behavior in the moment. Taking active, out loud accountability for it. This is part of a larger ongoing transformation that Scorpios are always undergoing, moving from the instinct-driven scorpion through the strategic eagle to the fully reborn phoenix. Along the way, they're learning to release control, let go of grudges, embrace vulnerability, and use their intensity to connect rather than to push people away, which y'all do a lot. Rumination keeps you stuck while processing allows you to grow. And when Scorpios learn to communicate their emotions instead of expecting people to read their minds and just know, that's when their relationships become incredibly strong instead of incredibly intense but unstable. And this is an over a lifetime transformation. If you're a 30-something-year-old and trying to tell me that you have achieved this evolution already, I think you should rewatch the video. So keep in mind, depth is not the same thing as emotional safety, and real intimacy does not come from being understood without speaking. It comes from being brave enough to actually say what you feel and what you're actually going through at the time. Okay, let me know what sign to do next.